When a remaster of the PlayStation 1 classic game Pac-Man World was announced a few months ago, I was like, sweet, I like 3D platformers. I like Pac-Man. I mean, who doesn't love the little yellow bastard? I thought, well, I've never played the original, well, the three original games. So I decided to not go back and play those and just wait until this came out to actually play it. And I'm happy to report it's a lot of fun. Now, I went in this knowing absolutely nothing about it. To be honest, I actually didn't realize that a 3D platformer with Pac Man even existed. Because the Pac Man Museum Plus came out a few months ago, and the biggest omission people were talking about, where everyone was like, "Where's Pac Man World?" And so I looked into it, and I'm like, oh, there's 3D platformers with Pac Man. And I like Mario, I like a lot of those 3D platformers like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot. And I feel like the genre's kind of had a resurgence as of late. Because you go back like 10 years and they were just dead. Nobody would make a new one because nobody was playing them anymore. They were thought of as like a relic of the 90s and the early 2000s, and they thought, well, it's just not profitable anymore and people don't like this type of game. It's the reason why Naughty Dog said they wouldn't make another Crash game. Of course, they would be proven wrong later when they remastered those games. But yeah, what happened was like a lot of the kids that grew up with those games are now of age to where they are getting into game development, and well, also a lot of them now have disposable income that they didn't have back then. So they'll throw some cash down if they see a remake of those games that, I mean, it's nostalgia bait. It's the same reason why old movies get rebooted and why there's sequels to 80s and 90s movies all the time, is because people want to see the things they saw as a kid again. So they brought back, I mean, Spyro got a remaster trilogy, which I had never played those. They're a lot of fun. They did the Crash trilogy, and then that led into a fourth game. And of course, another big one people want to see return is Banjo-Kazooie, which is shocking to me. Hopefully Rare is working on Banjo 3 right now, but I don't know. And then, of course, we don't have a new Mario game. We haven't had one in like 5 years, a 3D Mario game with like Mario Odyssey. So this game, like, this should fill a void in the market for like 3D platformers. Not a lot of them out right now. And I mean, come on, it's Pac-Man. He's iconic. So the general gameplay is that I've heard this type of 3D platformer, like the worlds that you play on, described as like a shoebox. It's almost like the world is like a little, it's like a box you can hold and rotate. Because it's not a full-on 3D platformer, something like Mario 64. This is more like the Super Mario Bros. Games. It's not 2.5D. It's still definitely 3D, but like the worlds are kind of more vertical and horizontal, and there's like stacking levels. It doesn't have like the wide open spaces that Super Mario 64 has. So the gameplay has been completely revamped from the original version, and like I said, I've never played the original, but I went back and watched some footage. I think most of the moves are intact from the original. I definitely think the game has probably been simplified a little bit because it was probably frustrating, especially on like a PS1. But the controls are snappier. The visuals are obviously so much better after 23 years or whatever it's been. And apparently people have been begging for these to be remastered for so long, so it's cool to finally see it happen. I mean, when they announced it on their Twitter, Bandai Namco was like, we heard you wanted a remake. And they probably saw the big sales numbers for Crash and Spyro and stuff like that. So you got different themed worlds. You got, I think there's 6 of them in the game. There's like a pirate world, a space world. There is kind of a loose thread of a story over the whole game. It starts off with Pac-Man's family's been kidnapped, and you have to rescue them all by beating all 6 worlds and defeating bosses. And the bosses so far are all different. They're all very really varied, which is cool. Like I was afraid they might be samey, but no, the way you defeat each one is very different with each one. You got like a pirate ship that you have to deflect his cannonballs back at him. You got this boss called Anubis. They have to like use these pads that you run on to weaken him. The coolest one so far is King Galixian, and just like the game, you are. Even though I think the enemies look like the enemies from Galaga, so I don't. I've never understood the difference between Galaga and Galixian. I know they're two different games, but is like one a remake of the other? Is Galaga like an improved remake of Galixian? I don't know. I'd like to know that. But as a huge fan of Galaga as well, I was like, oh, this is cool. You just fly around and shoot his eyes. So like the bosses are completely different genres from the rest of the game. Like later on, I haven't gotten to it, but there's like a carnival world, and there's like a race mini game that you do for the boss, and you're like in these carts. So that makes me think, like, I had the feeling what happened was they made Pac-Man Museum Plus, and like they had the little 3D Pac-Man you can run around the hub world with, and they were probably like, let's not let this 3D all this work we did with the 3D models go to waste. Let's remake Pac-Man World finally. And so what I'm here to this video serves as a just an impressions video, but also it's a call to arms for it. I'm calling upon any fan of 3D platformers, Pac-Man fans, and fans of just fun games to please, please, please support this game. Like, I'm actually considering buying it on 3 different platforms. Like, I bought it on Xbox. I might buy it on Switch and PlayStation as well, because I really want it to sell well, and I think a lot of people do, especially fans of the series, because all these people desperately want to see Pac-Man World 2 remastered. Like, as much as people like this game, the actual, like, the bona fide classic of this series was Pac-Man World 2. Everybody adores that game that plays it. They said it's the best one. It's the one that's more like Mario 64. It's a much more open world. Unfortunately, it'll probably take longer to remake than this game. So I assume that's what they're working on, and hopefully they've already started work on it. Like, they could be waiting to see how well this does before they greenlight it. But fingers crossed they like predicted this would sell well, and they already are working on 2, because otherwise they're gonna have to wait a couple years to see World 2 remastered. 3, I hear not so good things about. Well, I mean, like, the gameplay is probably fine, but the weird like voice acting in it, the people don't like. I have the feeling if they remake that, they'll just cut out the voice acting and have gibberish. I know some people didn't like that, but Pac-Man probably shouldn't talk. The visuals are great. I mean, Pac-Man looks just like he does in Smash Ultimate. So vibrant colors. I mean, it's a huge step up, obviously, from the PS1 version. And from what I've seen, like, side-by-side comparisons, the game looks nearly identical. Like, the levels look laid out exactly the same. It just has a new coat of paint. And, of course, the tweaked gameplay. And there's, like, I think a couple new moves. Like, there's one where, like, Pac-Man can jump and, like, run in air. But most of his, he's got the butt bounce. He can bounce on enemies. He can throw Pac dots at enemies and the bombs. And then he can roll like Sonic and run into people. He's pretty fun to control. And of course, there's like the ongoing licensing issue with Miss Pac-Man, so she had to be replaced in this game with Pac-Mom. I don't really completely understand that whole situation of why Miss Pac-Man is not owned by like the same company as Pac-Man, or it is, but there's like a licensing dispute. I don't know. So they have to keep putting Pac-Mom into new Pac-Man games, which kind of sucks. Because Miss Pac-Man is just as iconic. But now she's like this new sun hat wearing Pac-Man instead of like the classic bow and the lipstick. Anyway, I'm only like halfway through this game, but I'm having a blast so far. I can see why people wanted this remade, but again, please support it, because everybody wants to see 2. That's the one that they want to see more so than this one. This is a great first stab at remaking this trilogy, but here's hoping they do 2 and 3. And also, on top of that, I hope that they do what they did with the Crash games, and I'm surprised they didn't do it with Spyro, where, well, maybe it didn't sell as well, but the Crash trilogy sold like hotcakes, and then they're like, okay, fine, let's make Crash 4 finally, because, like I said earlier, the 3D platformer is viable again. So, maybe, fingers crossed, they'll make a 4th game? Like, because when I was looking into the history of this series, apparently in 2010, they planned a reboot, also called just Pac-Man World, and they were going to reboot the franchise, and then it got canceled. Not sure why. Maybe, probably because at that time, 3D platformers weren't selling well. It's surprising that we didn't get like especially around that time, like when Call of Duty was like first coming to prominence, everybody wanted to copy it and make their own Call of Duty. I'm surprised we didn't get some bizarro Pac-Man FPS game where he's like shooting dots at ghosts. That might be kind of cool, actually. A Plants vs. Zombies style Pac-Man shooter actually might be kind of... Namco, hit me up if you use that idea for a game. I thought of it first. Well, I probably didn't actually, but that actually is a cool idea. Imagine like your kill streaks are you become like Super Pac-Man and you can run around. You're invincible for like 30 seconds and you just eat all the other enemies. Oh man, that sounds cool. Seriously, Bandai Namco, hit me up. I'll give you some design ideas. Let's make this happen. I mean, FPSs sell well. Pac-Man's popular. Maybe there's like a thing where they don't want him to seem violent. I'm not sure. But don't have him have guns. Have him just shoot the dots out of his mouth. And you can have a roster. You can have Pac-Man. Well, for now, Pac-Mom. You can't have Miss Pac-Man for now. What is it? Pac-Boy. Professor Pac. I like this idea. This sounds fun. Anyway, I'm getting way off track. I'm trying to talk about my impressions of Pac-Man. I mean, there's really not much to say except for I'm having a great time with it. It's the hub world is similar to the old Lego Star Wars games in that you can you walk through gates to start. I guess that's also like Quake as well, where you start a new level and you walk into a gate and then you finish that one and then you unlock another one. So the hub world's actually it's not huge, but you walk around from level to level, which is very different from Pac-Man World 2, which is just a big open map. Bosses haven't been that hard. The game hasn't really been that hard at all. Like I as someone that's pretty good at 3D platformers, it's not like you can turn on easy mode, but I imagine most people don't need it because you're given plenty of extra lives, so it's not and then like the checkpoint system is pretty generous. The music is great. Apparently they use the same music from the original and it's all really catchy tunes. So far I don't really have any complaints. It's just and it's only $30 too, so it's not like you're dropping a full price for that game. And that's why I might buy it on multiple platforms just to support them because it's something the fans wanted to see for a long time, so and they delivered. I like to reward game companies and developers who make good business practices because this is definitely one of them. There's no microtransactions, there's no loot boxes, none of that crap. It's just $30, you get the game, that's it. None of the extra crap. So bravo Bandai Namco for doing that. Shouldn't have to reward basic things that are should be standard in the gaming industry, but that's where we are now. Yeah, and like seeing those cars in that one boss level makes me think that they could also remaster Pac-Man World Rally, which is a racing game, and they've done that before with mascot platformers where after they make the platforming games, they do a racing game. For example, the biggest one is Crash Team Racing. They did after the 3 Crash games. But yeah, I mean, like as a big fan of Pac-Man, it's fun to actually like experience this series for the first, at least the first game for now, for the first time because again, going from not even knowing there's a 3D Pac-Man series to actually getting to play it is cool. And fingers crossed, we're not waiting too long for 2, and let's hope it happens. So spread the word if you're a Pac-Man fan or a 3D platformer fan. Please buy this game. Let's get 2 made and 3 and maybe a new installment. And if not Pac-Man World 4, just make a new 3D Pac. I have the feeling with I mean especially with technology today, you can make some like a really cool new 3D Pac-Man game. So because I just got a new like guy in charge of the Pac-Man franchise at Namco. So far he's killing it. His first project was Museum Plus, and he was sorely needed because well, is the anniversary this year or like it was recently? I don't know, but like they wanted to revitalize the brand. I think because it hasn't really gotten that many games in the past like 10 years. I mean, it's gotten Championship Edition 1 and 2, which I adore, but and then like you got 256 and Pac-Man 99. But you haven't really had something big, and this feels like the biggest thing the franchise has gotten in a while. So, and I mean, again, if they want to make that FPS idea, my inbox is open, as if that would ever happen. So yeah, that's really all I want to say about so far my experience with Pac-Man World Re-Pac. It's a lot of fun. Highly recommend you pick it up on any platform. It runs at 60 on all like major platforms except for Switch, which is crazy. Like this game is a remake of a game that's 20 years old on PS1 and it can't run at 60 on Switch. It's like, come on, Nintendo. So if you have nothing else to play right now, go pick it up. I think it's definitely worth the price point. Again, I'm not trying to make like a comprehensive review. I'm not a review channel. I might get into that at some point. Eventually, I might like do full on reviews. I just want to say like my initial thought, and I mean, this went from impressions. It was just going to be an impressions thing, but then I kind of went off into the weeds about other 3D platformers and games I'd like to see from this IP. But that's about it for this video. Doubt I will make more videos on this. It's just I just make a video on whatever I want to make in whatever mood I'm in. Yeah, maybe it's not consistent. Yeah, it's not gonna ride the wave of the algorithm, but what are you gonna do? So for other gaming videos, maybe I'll make a video about World 2 if that comes out, or like maybe I'm sure I'll make a video on it if and when they announce the next one. But I have a lot of other stuff, other gaming videos, other stuff about movies, generally nerdy stuff and let's plays. So if you're finding this video because the game just came out, thank you for watching my stuff. And if you go to my channel and you can see all the other stuff I got, I'd really appreciate it. So thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. And I'll see you next time. Peace out.